to live with their disability, the boys are still finding time to amuse themselves with a game of marbles. Waqas and Waqar may not be able to walk again, but for many other children, there is hope that they would not have to suffer the same fate. There are still many areas along the border with Afghanistan that aren't safe enough for immunization teams to visit. The real test of the stability for Swat is now to ensure that vaccine reaches those that need it most. Kamal Haider, AlJazeera, Swat.
Now, just before he's due to appear in court, Italy's Prime Minister has unveiled controversial proposals to restrict the powers of prosecutors. Among Silvio Berlusconi's proposals, he wants Parliament to allow judges to be sued for trial errors. Barnaby Phillips has more.
Silvio
Berlusconi announced the reforms with a bandage on his face.
Estetico, a cui sono sottoposto.
He's had surgery to repair damage suffered when he was attacked in the streets 18 months ago. So what's the connection between these judicial reforms and his own well-publicized legal difficulties?
Zero, assolutamente zero. Questa riforma noi l'abbiamo...
Zero, absolutely zero. We've been planning this since 1994, when we entered politics. I've told young people from my party Forza Italia that I will never leave politics without first introducing this sort of reform into our judicial system.
So what exactly are Berlusconi's reforms? He wants a clear separation between judges and prosecutors, with less power for prosecutors. He wants judges to pay damages for mistakes. And he wants a more efficient system. Looming over Italy is the impending case of Berlusconi and the girl they call Ruby the Heart Stealer. He's accused of paying her for sex before her 18th birthday. They deny this, but his opponents say it's no coincidence that he's now trying to reform the judiciary.
He needs a diversion to talk about something else from that. And this provides him with a very, very powerful smokescreen and a platform upon which he can claim that the justice system is unfair, that investigative magistrates are politically biased, that the whole thing needs to be changed. And so that's why it's coming up now with this proposal of reform, I believe.
Over the years, Silvio Berlusconi has faced at least a dozen trials and many investigations, mostly on corruption charges. He's always maintained his innocence, but his many battles with the judiciary don't help his credibility as a legal reformer. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera.
I'm just getting some breaking news in from Japan. Reports of a strong earthquake striking the north of the country, apparently rattling buildings in Tokyo, as far afield as Tokyo. A tsunami warning has been issued. Strong earthquake in northern Japan. We'll bring you all the latest from there. Meanwhile, the death toll from an earthquake that struck southwest China on Thursday has risen to 25. Hundreds of others have been injured and more than 1,000 families are homeless. Azar Sukri has more.
A partially collapsed building leans precariously and rescuers work frantically to save as many people as they can. Under the rubble, a woman lies trapped. Eventually they reach her and, as gently as possible, pull her to safety. Traffic surveillance cameras recorded these pictures as the earthquake struck Yingjiang County in the southwestern province of Yunnan. The quake toppled more than 1,000 homes and apartments. It was the latest of more than 1,200 minor tremors in the region over the last 2 months. State television pictures showed buildings that had buckled, crushing their lower floors. According to the US Geological Survey, more than 1 million people may have been exposed to the worst shaking. The quake's epicenter was near the border with Myanmar, but the secretive government gave no information of the impact of the quake on its impoverished people. Azhar Sukri, Al Jazeera.
Well, do stay with us. We'll be back with more news at the top of the hour.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies. We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world. At this time on Al Jazeera.
A debilitating condition afflicting millions of women across the developing world.
Sometimes it is not possible to cure a patient with fistula. We have to prepare her psychologically.
Revealing the human stories behind fistula and its intimate connection to poverty. Exploring global maternal health, birthrights, at this time on Al Jazeera.
Al Jazeera focused on the bitter divides.
The battle for Kilinochchi is entering its final phase.
We focused on the large and the small. On a resurgent Taliban.
The Taliban remain one step ahead.
And the battles within. We focused when the rains fell and the ground shook.
Half the population is dead.
Throughout Asia, we focus on news and documentaries that matter to you. Al Jazeera, television that truly inspires.
Leaders are remembered, be they loved or feared. Alone they are inscribed on the pages of history. But what of the men and women whose hands build their monuments and whose blood stains their battlefields? The people who, against all odds, wield the power to reshape history. People in power at this time on Al Jazeera.
Slanuf under fire. Pro-Gaddafi forces step up their assault on the oil port in the front line. It's 0600 GMT. We'll have all the latest on Libya from the front line and breaking news on another earthquake in Japan. Hello, I'm Laura Kyle. This is Al Jazeera live from Doha.
This is our country. We will never ever give up, and we will never ever surrender.
The Libyan leader's son warns of an all-out assault to crush rebel fighters. Police in Saudi opened fire to disperse protesters ahead of a so-called Day of Rage on Friday. And the African Union backs Alassane Ouattara as the rightful president of Côte d'Ivoire. So we're just getting news out of Japan of a 7.9 magnitude quake hitting just off the north of the country. These are the first pictures we're getting of the aftermath. These pictures coming from Japan.